Hello, hello. My name is Brittany.
And I'm Kate.
And we are
The Fools.
Join us as we explore everything spiritual, astrological, and overall mystical.
Don't forget to follow your intuition, but more importantly, follow us at The Fools.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Fools Podcast.
Hello again. We have a guest with us today.
Hey.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Olivia, but I also go by Olive, so it's really up to you, whatever you feel. I like both. Yeah, and I have been friends with Kate since we were in second grade. I love that so much. Not many people can keep friendships like that going. I mean, my boyfriend is one of the only people that I know who has friends like from, I almost said birth, like childhood. Birth, the womb. But what's really great about Olivia/Olive, what do you prefer? Is it just like what
I don't have a preference, yeah.
I love that. Well, Olivia also has a podcast, guys. So before this even fucking gets going, go over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and go subscribe to the Double Rainbow Podcast and give that a good listen because we love to support each other.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about your podcast a little? Do you have like a one sentence summary?
If you want to explore some pretty far out there spiritual concepts, some others that aren't as far out there but going a little bit deeper into them, looking for some different avenues for your spirituality, come hang out with me and Raven.
Yeah, I feel like the double rainbow podcast is like a great not a step deeper into spirituality, but it's like definitely like you like listen to the Fools podcast, so you're like dipping your toes, and then you go to the Double Rainbow to like deep dive.
Because you dipped your toes and you're like, yeah,
I'm feeling good in the water.
I don't doubt this anymore. Like we're just gonna function off of like the baseline assumption that we know like
what it is.
Yeah, like the great mystery, but also some like spiritual concepts, so it's just easier to dive in. So
And we're talking to you about tarot today.
Thank you.
You are a tarot reader. So we brought her on to discuss some basic concepts. We'll do like a little introduction and move on from there. So I guess tell us a little bit about how you even get into tarot.
Well, it's pretty funny. My mom actually I think she started doing it when she was in like her 20s. And so then she introduced me when I was like really little. I would say maybe like 3 years old. And it became a normal part of life. And it was just like, you have a question, you ask the cards. It's just a thing you do.
I love that. There's not many people I feel like who are raised like that.
Yeah, I was very blessed. It was very unique. So I always it was a part of my life, it was just a normal part of my life. And then kind of got away from it, in teenage years because being teens fucked up. But
we were all like went through our emo 2007 phase of wearing.
Exactly. And then that is actually what led me back into it because all the feelings and stuff.
You're emo.
Yes. Yeah. So anyways, I started reading for myself and others at that time again when I was like 16, and I've kind of just worked it into not only my friendships, but then made a business. And so now I go under Little Flower and I give tarot readings. I also do tarot lessons. So if you're like trying to learn.
Oh yeah. Do you do classes like the one that you've done previously?
Yeah, I have an intro to tarot class, and I'm also going to do a one that's for professional readers or people who read for other people, and it's going to be trauma-informed divination, because I also used to work in social work for a little bit, and went to school for psychology as well. And so there's some things, from that field that can be brought in. So.
Totally. I love that intertwines so much. I love whenever you can bring like the spirituality of things in conjunction with like our fast-paced world.
Yeah.
Like medicine can go with fucking spirituality. I don't know. I just feel like so many times people have like this lack mentality, like it's one or the other, and it's like, or we could all just fucking be friends and
we can incorporate science and things we know
exactly
into our spiritual practices.
Totally. So also, guys, just so you know, we're going to be linking
Olivia's Instagram in our description boxes. So
But why don't you say
Thank
it?
you. Oh yeah, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at hi_little_flower.
Yeah, so if you want to reach out for personal tarot readings or any of the fun things that you just talked about,
Hit me up there
Do that.
or also at www.hilittleflower.com.
yes, we love an on-brand queen.
Thank you.
Got it. Okay.
Thanks again for having me. I'm so happy.
Yeah, we're happy.
happy.
I feel like it's because we are like the fools. When I was thinking about doing a tarot episode with Kate, I was like, I'm gonna have to fucking sit down and study because I am a fool when it comes to tarot and all this stuff. I am such a noob, which
It's
I'm
the
like proud
first
to
card.
be. Yeah, exactly. But I'm glad that we can have someone who's an expert and more further along on their journey to like explain it, so we aren't fumbling through it as much. You know what I mean?
So it's fun because also when Olivia was getting back into her tarot journey as a teen, her mom Nancy gifted me my second deck I ever got. So I bought the mini deck in New Orleans when I went when I was 17, and then when I came back we were talking about it, I'm sure, and she was overhearing, and so she
Eavesdropping. You
yeah
don't say eavesdropping.
she found a tarot deck and was like, here, do you want this? I was like, that was sick. I do want this, Nancy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
So Nancy actually played a role in my little journey as well.
Shout out to Nancy.
Shout out to
Hell yeah,
Nancy.
Nancy. I hope you're listening to this.
She will.
Hell yeah.
We love a supportive mom queen. We love that. Okay, so we got a question from one of my followers, which is, do you know where the term tarot comes from?
Yeah, so that comes from and I might say it wrong because I don't speak Italian, but from the Italian word tarocchi. And that was basically the name of one iteration. There's been many iterations of tarot decks as they've like evolved in different places, but that was one iteration, and it was a very specific game with the cards as well. So, and then I don't know what happened from A to B, but something happened and it went from tarocchi to tarot. So it's really like tarot. And some people who are really anal about it are like, if you say tarot, they're like, whatever, but I've said that my whole life because that's how like my mom introduced it to me, you know?
It's
Yeah.
one of the oh my god, when people gonna become a stickler
Tarot.
about like pronouncing, then again I say milk, and you know, so take this all with a grain of fucking salt. But
We don't trust them.
we don't trust people who can't pronounce e's and i's. But I just think like when I was in Ibiza, and they'd be like, it's Ibiza, and I'm like, as an American, if I say Ibiza, I feel like I'm making fun of you. So I don't know if you want me. I just like have to say it like with Ibiza, like, you know. So I think I
head
should just
nod.
keep saying Ibiza
You
and
do
like
it really well though.
you know. But that's what I'm saying. I feel like sometimes when people try, like when someone is like rojo, and you're like, it's rojo, like you know, yes, I get that you're trying to do the thing,
The cultural
thing,
inflection.
but sometimes people just take it to this like, and just like, let's all be inclusive, bro.
Yeah.
It's a different word at this point, honestly.
Yeah, literally, like it's come so far.
Yeah.
That's
In
interesting.
your tarot course that I took from you online, we did talk about the origins of tarot and how it's like actually a debated topic of where it comes
Pretty
from.
controversial.
Oh,
And
we love a
I'd
controversial
love
history.
for you to talk more about that.
Yeah, of course. So there's not a general consensus on like where it came from. Like a lot of people have very strong opinions about it, you know, and are pretty like one camp or the other. Not always, but it's confusing, obviously, because it arose during like what, you know, we in like the Western world called like the Dark Ages, which is, you know, about 800 years ago, probably 700, 800, and just a long time, you know. So the evidence from that time and the cards from that time, you know, they're made of paper, they don't last, so we don't really have all of the pieces to the puzzle. But the pieces we do have is the first deck that's like similar at all is actually from China in like I think like 1100 or 1200 AD. And it was just used for like games. It wasn't necessarily for divination. And then it gets spread along the like silk trading route, and it's brought through like the Middle East, and then through the Middle East to like Europe. And so that's one thought. Then there's also the totally other thought of people who are like, no, these were from Egypt, like these were channeled in Egypt. They're not related to those cards, from China at all. Or then the ones that arose in Europe and around the year like around 1400 AD, they started popping up in Italy and Spain were really popular, France, yeah. And so because there's not like a written document about like the history of tarot, like from that time, like we don't know. But another important thing is that there's also like this theory that they came from what now it's a slur word, like gypsy is a slur word. Just saying it so people know what we're talking about, because I feel like when you say the G word, people are like, what? Like what G word? There's this like theory that they came from the Romani people and that they were brought through, but it's part of the slur because they say they were brought through Egypt. And the Romani people weren't from Egypt. That was actually just kind of racist and really was not true to their history at all. But because people who Romani used the cards and, were known to be readers because that was some of the only jobs they could get, then it became like this kind of like folklore with it that, it was, the Romani people. So as you can see, like there's a lot of different stories. There's a lot of different ideas, and that there's more, but I'm not going to go into them. That's just like a really brief. If you take the class, we'll talk about a lot more
in depth. Wow, that's so interesting because I had no idea. I love that though because I feel like so many things happen from all over the world that even like religion, which I won't get into like deeply, whatever. But it's like there's so much crossover in religion, and it's all in different parts of the world, and like I just feel like there's so many pieces of things in history where it's kind of like, there's a lot of overlap. I feel like
there's a lot of overlap.
We all came from somewhere some like in Africa. I don't know. It just feels like it always like connects to us like being one at one point. I love that.
So when do you think that tarot became popularized for divination?
That's a good question, and that's also something that's like kind of debated. So if it's my personal opinion, I would say probably like as soon as they were invented, because here's the thing is divination was not new at that time. Divination is one of the oldest, things out there. So of course, when you have a new tool for divination, that's gonna spread and people are gonna use it. And I'm sure that's awesome, to like go from, there's all sorts of things you can do with divination, but to have the cards, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like a more direct like route almost.
Yeah. So they're so helpful.
It's interesting. I always thought like the Rider-Waite tarot deck was like the beginning because that's the one everyone refers to.
Yes.
But that's not true at all.
No, that one wasn't, I don't remember the exact date, but it's either like the late 1800s or early 1900s. And it was, written by this guy in like the UK. And then Pamela Coleman Smith is actually the woman who illustrated it. But that was more like, they were like into like esoteric and like occult things, and that was really like the revival, I would say, because it kind of went down for a bit in popularity in some cultures and places, and then it came back up with the Rider-Waite, and then obviously right now I feel like it's another like tarot renaissance.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah. With the rise of TikTok, it has definitely brought like the newer generation. I'm just assuming you're a millennial, who fucking knows, but the Gen Z generation is like, I feel like super really getting into like spirituality and all that stuff again, which I love.
I know, I love that for them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really great for the collective.
Yeah,
totally.
Agreed.
Okay, so you kind of talked about it a little bit, but how do you feel like people use tarot today in daily life? I feel like there's like a lot of ways, but like the general branch of it is divination.
Yeah. Wow. Honestly, I feel like there's so many ways that I probably don't even know all of them, because sometimes when I work with other readers or meet new people, I find new ways to use the cards that I never even knew about, so or never thought of. So it's really, there's so many spectrums. Some people use it from one side of the spectrum as like they're just like a psychological tool. It's for self-reflection, and then like on the other side of that spectrum is this is for channeling messages from spirits,
like
and spirit directly. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, you see it in like, I wrote down a couple of like notes like fortune telling, personal growth, life coaching, spiritual development, and then magic and ritual. So it's fun because no matter where you are in your spiritual journey, tarot is just gonna like add to it. Yeah. I feel like so many people are, what's the word I'm looking for? Not scared, but like
There's definitely a
Hesitant?
Hesitant, or
resistance.
they feel like they're not good enough or not ready for the cards.
Right. And they look at, sometimes I have to remind people, they look like, I'm a reader, and they're like, oh, well, of course you can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people
I couldn't do that. I could never. It's like when you see like an artist of some sort, and you're like,
I can't do that.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a word I'm trying to think of. Like, I guess resistance to
Yeah.
it. But I think like anybody could pick up a tarot, and it would, like, if at the base of it, even if you're not into spirituality, could just like make you think about your daily life.
Totally.
And like have a reflection tool, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a hard time reflecting and
They
have
don't
a
wanna think
hard
about it.
time.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It can be hard.
Especially when those messages are hard ones to hear. I think maybe that's another reason why tarot will get a bad rep sometimes, because it will just perhaps not tell you what you want to hear.
Or you can interpret it. It gets so weird. Like, I actually wrote down the question, why do people interpret them differently? Because we're all learning, and like the Rider-Waite tarot is kind of like the baseline, is what I've heard, is like very broad definitions. Like if you look at the Rider-Waite book, it's like they'll give you a couple words or a sentence, where like other newer decks give you like a page explanation of things. But I feel like if you're not doing a lot of healing internally or meditating or those like things that make you happy, and you pull like a death card or something, and it
can be
overwhelming,
anxiety inducing. It can actually make things worse.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like it's a tool that you can use, but also alongside of all of this, spirituality in general should be about raising your vibration, becoming the best version of yourself, and that type of stuff, because you can find anything in life and like have it make things worse. But if that makes sense.
And it's also like what you said is really important about it being a tool, because that is what the cards are. They are a tool, so that is why we have different interpretations of them. And I want to encourage maybe people who are reading themselves or thinking about it, that the guidebooks are awesome. I'm not saying don't read them, but the relationship that you make with each card and the interpretation and the feeling that you get from it is what's the most important. And so that's why maybe one card to somebody could mean something, whereas to another person it could mean something else, because you're going to use that tool differently. And how you interpret messages might not be the same as somebody else, if we're talking about it on like the spiritual level, because that's how I practice it. So yeah,
that's so interesting, because I love that, like having a connection and relationship with your card specifically, because there are so many different types of decks, and the artwork is different, and you should try to figure out what resonates with you and like speaks to you.
Yeah.
Like the deck that I picked out, super fucking expensive, but I just looked at the colors and the imagery and just knew it'd be something that I would want to pull every day. And now I try, before I look at the guidebook, because I feel like you kind of do this, where you start rattling things like, oh, it's an eagle, justice, oh, it's strength, it's mobility, it's flying. And I was like, oh, she's just looking at the card. Where I can get very detail oriented and literal and be like, well, the book told me that, so it's interesting, because it's like you should really look at a card, especially if you're looking to buy your first deck, and feel what sings to you, because it's going to help you interpret messages later on.
Totally.
Agreed. One quick little question I have. Do you read reverse meanings in your tarot deck?
Yes and no. I don't read reverse in terms of if the card's upside down, but I do read the different polarities of cards, which is in a way what a reversal is, because, when it's upright, that's like the positive side of that card, and when it's downright, it's usually like the negative. So I do read like different messages. For like one card can have different messages, but that's, instead of reading it by how it's physically oriented, I read it by how like I interpret the message and how it feels and how things come through.
So it's almost more so like how it relates to whatever you were asking,
Yes.
or like the card you pulled before it, or stuff like that.
Right. And I decided to go that way personally, because when you do reversals, like the up down, you're really stuck in the polar and like opposite. Totally positive, totally negative. And that's not how I like to read. Like, you don't always get the best messages that way, because life is more complex than that. And
life is not black and white.
Yeah.
Very gray, morally.
Yeah.
For me. That's interesting, yeah. Because I always thought it was funny that Kate's like, nah, fuck the reversals. And I was like, but it says in the book that we have to do it this way. And, you know, it's so funny. I love the freedom that you're like giving the whole practice, which is super important. Before we get too deep into it though, because I was going to ask you, do you believe in jumpers? But I feel like before we get into that, we should explain, like, when you have a tarot deck, you should shuffle it and cleanse it and all of that, all of these steps that you should do, or what we're talking about maybe. So, like, reversals and polarity of a card is when it's upright. If you pull it off of the deck, it's upright. Yeah. I don't know how else to say it. And then if it's upside down. So that happens after you, like, shuffle the deck, which you can shuffle decks many ways. Whatever speaks
Brittany
to you.
doesn't like to bend her cards.
Well, they were $100, so you've been. I actually have started doing it, but very gently.
Gentle
because I do think it's a better shuffle. Okay. I try to do. I don't know what the
everybody's
this is
got
called.
their thing.
I know.
Yeah,
this one, but just shuffling in your hand and then like cutting the stack. But it's funny because I've noticed when I watch Raven's TikToks. Raven is one of our friends that we talk about, the Midtown Mystic on here, podcast partner. Extraordinaire. But I noticed that she always pulls the jumpers. And a jumper is basically when one of your cards, when you're shuffling and one kind of like pops out or falls out or something. And then Kate also was like, oh, I don't read jumpers.
Well,
I go either way.
I've seen you do it.
Yeah.
I think if it's like super obvious that you didn't just like drop it because you
are being
suck at shuffling.
Silly. Yeah. Yeah, personally, I usually read jumpers because it's all about the relationship you make with your tool, you know, of divination. And if it's cards, that's something you have to figure out. And I usually do because I think that helps me overcome, in some of the earlier stages, some of the doubts that I had about, you know, like, am I picking the right card? Because I'm just like, fine, you know, if it flies out, then
it wants to
come out, and like you can't deny that message. And also when I went to other readers, I would notice that happening, and when you're looking from the outside, it doesn't even look as much like a mistake, honestly, if you're like there in person. Like sometimes you can see it's like just poof, they fly the fuck out of there. So yeah, I do. But obviously if I'm just like, you know, kind of fumbling around and drop like half the cards, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, there's my message.
Half the deck. You're like, well, half of the deck is here, baby. So let's get going. I love that. Okay, cool. So I have 2 more questions. This one episode might be a little long. We'll try to keep it short. I can answer
quick.
So there are tarot decks. That's what this has been focused on. Now, the only other type of deck I've noticed is oracle decks. Are there other kind of decks beside that? And what is the difference between a tarot and an oracle deck?
Yeah, I mean, Oracle's deck is kind of like a broad term because there's so many different kinds of cards that could fall under there. The only thing that's in common is that they're cards for divination. And sometimes people do like a similar amount, but, you know, other than that, there's a lot of great variation in Oracle decks. Whereas in tarot decks, it is like based off of what we were talking about earlier a little bit, in that like progression of the more ancient cards that were used in that lineage. So there is like this specific progression in the tarot deck. You know, you have the major arcana. There's like the first, you know, 0 through 21, and then you have all of like the suits, and you have the same suits. But, you know, in different tarot decks, people kind of take a spin on the story, but there's definitely like a storyline there.
Yeah, you can see the major, minor arcanas, the wands, the cups, the swords. It's always going to be like the same kind of thing. And then oracle decks is just like any artist, anybody can kind of make one.
Yeah, and any kind of visuals too. Like it doesn't have to just be that story. Like I use ones with flowers and herbs. I have ones with animals. You know, there's all different kind of ones you can use.
Yeah, I love that.
I love oracle decks because that freedom.
Yeah.
And like I love to see what people create. You know what I saw the other day? I saw a Meryl Streep tarot deck.
That's so oddly specific. What? Like one woman show.
In all her roles, I guess they were just all the different tarots. Anyways, there's a lot out there.
That's
you know,
probably the silliest.
There's
one
a lot out there. I actually am interested in your personal opinion on which 2 cards. So which card challenges you the most, and which card lights you up the most?
It just depends on what's going on, to be honest, because I would say sometimes, like, the moon will light me up the most because that's just, I really identify with that card. And so sometimes that one will really get me, but then at other times in my life, if other stuff is going on, I might be like, fuck you. Like, I can't believe you.
You got the dark side of the moon, bitch.
Yeah, like, I wanted the sun. So I can't honestly say that I have a total favorite or, like...
Something you're drawn to.
Something I'm drawn to, no, because it totally just depends on the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, actually, somebody asked this too, which I'll put at the end. Do you have a favorite deck overall?
Honestly, no.
Just whichever you're feeling.
Yeah.
Like, for the day.
And what the person I'm with is feeling. That's why I can't pick a favorite, because I think that different decks work better with different people. And so I guess if I had to pick one for me,
Yeah.
probably the working with, honestly, any of the animal decks.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of decks, let's pull a tarot for the ending of this. But while one of us is shuffling, I think it would be fun to ask the best way to start tarot. Would just be going for it or doing research, or what do you think? Like, people should just walk in a shop. Do you have any advice for people? Because I feel like
I
you
guess
said,
A lot of
bit.
noobs, yeah.
I guess I have a little. I mean, I think that path could really vary depending on who you are and how you learn things. But honestly, good place to start is just going to a shop or
Just doing it.
You're just getting a deck and then, starting to work with it. And I always suggest doing, at least when you first start, like, daily pulls, and you can do that at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, and to either be like a predictive energy or like a reflective energy. And so then you build the relationship with the cards, and it's not so much about, like, stressful, like, I have to know what this means. It's about, like, learning.
You kind of get to experience in your daily life what those messages reflect and mean. So I think that's the great part of the daily pull, is it helps you connect to the deck in a way that sometimes you're going through your day and you're like, yeah, man, I know exactly where this energy is coming from. Like,
Yes.
this is
basically, if you have an interest in tarot and you feel fucking pulled to it, just go get some, baby.
First things first, Google metaphysical bookstore and find a metaphysical bookstore near you.
Witchy shop. I type in
Do we
witch
just
shop.
do what? How many cards do you guys do?
Just pull one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can all see it. We'll take a picture.
Show
of
it,
this.
yeah. Pull up. See.
Okay. So this is the Six of Water. So this is a tarot deck. This is a goddess tarot deck. So they just break down the elements from the different suits. So this is just water or seas.
Would be a cup.
Yes, this would be a cup, but it's not interpreted exactly the same way. So we got Six of Water, and it is about pleasure, emotional pleasure.
I am literally feeling a lot of emotional pleasure from this conversation. So
And it's also just about, like, having that really open, like, heart energy, and just, I think it's great just, like, enjoying each other's presence, like, enjoying the energy
and
of the moment.
opening your heart to, like, starting your tarot journey. If this is the first time that you're ever, like, hearing about it or venturing about it, I feel like
and it's
inviting.
It's 6, so it's like a very open, like, part of the path, and, like, ready to learn new things. It's not the very beginning, it's not the very end either. Like,
I love that.
yeah.
Yay. Okay, well,
That's amazing.
yeah, honestly, you just pulled it for
Probably
Kate.
the water babe here.
I literally just pulled a mermaid. Remember before?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Anyways.
Well, thank you, Olivia, for being on our podcast.
Of course, thank you.
This is going to be a part 1 of a 2-part tarot.
Extraordinaire.
Thank you. So if you like this, make sure you come back next week. Stick around. Subscribe on everywhere that you listen to podcasts. Also, subscribe and listen to the Double Rainbow podcast, and check out Olivia at high_little_flowers. All of our Instagrams will be linked in all the description boxes of wherever you're listening. And if you have any questions at all for us or Olivia, we can always reach out to her. Email us at contactfoolspodcast@gmail.com.
Way to wrap it up, Britt.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I'm a goddamn professional kid. Did I miss anything?
No, that's all.
That was great.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.